In a metropolis where skyscrapers pierce the sky and people rush past each other without noticing each other, a homeless teenager Ethan accidentally finds a credit card belonging to Tycoon Jason Crow. But instead of spending millions, the boy asks for something that shocks the rich man: the truth about the injustice that destroyed his life. This encounter sets off a chain of events that turns the world upside down for both of them. The rain poured relentlessly over Seattle, turning the streets into a shimmering blur of neon lights and reflections. Ethan Carter, a lanky 16-year-old with a mop of dark hair plastered to his forehead, crouched under the awning of a shuttered coffee shop. His worn hoodie clung to his frame, soaked through from hours of wandering the city. He was a shadow among shadows, another invisible kid in a metropolis that didn't care. For years, he'd survived on the streets, scraping by with spare change from passers-by and the occasional dumpster dive. It wasn't a life, not really, but it was all he knew since his mom died and the system spit him out. Tonight felt different, though. The air buzzed with an electric hum, like something big was about to happen. Ethan's sharp eyes scanned the crowd hustling along Pine Street, their umbrellas bobbing like black mushrooms. That's when he saw him, a man in a tailored overcoat, cutting through the throng with the confidence of someone who owned the world. His polished shoes clicked against the wet pavement, and a gold watch glinted under the streetlights. Ethan didn't need to guess who he was. Everyone in Seattle knew James Crow, tech mogul, real estate tycoon, the kind of guy who could buy a skyscraper without blinking. The man barked into his phone, oblivious to the rain or the people he shoved past. Then it happened. As Crow swung his arm to hail a cab, something slipped from his pocket and hit the ground with a faint plink. Ethan's gaze zeroed in on it, a sleek, black credit card, its surface catching the light like obsidian. The man didn't notice, climbing into a sleek Tesla that peeled away into the night. Ethan darted forward, snatching the card before the tide of pedestrians could trample it. His fingers traced the embossed name, James M. Crow. No limit, no expiration, just pure, unfiltered power in plastic form. For a moment, Ethan stood frozen, rain dripping off his nose. His stomach growled, a sharp reminder of the burger he hadn't eaten in 2 days. With this card, he could walk into any store, buy a hot meal, a dry coat, maybe even a bus ticket out of this hellhole. He'd heard stories, urban legends about kids like him hitting the jackpot with a lost wallet or a hacked ATM. This could be his ticket to something better. But as he slipped the card into his pocket, another thought clawed its way up, one he couldn't shake. Crow wasn't just a random rich guy. 5 years ago, when Ethan was still a kid with a home and a mom, Crow Industries had swallowed up her life. She'd been a low-level accountant there, crunching numbers for a paycheck that barely covered rent. Then came the scandal. Someone pinned a massive embezzlement scheme on her. She swore she was innocent, but the evidence was airtight. Lawyers wouldn't touch her case, and the company fired her without a second thought. She lost everything: the apartment, her savings, her dignity. Ethan remembered her crying at the kitchen table, promising she'd fix it. She never did. A year later, she was gone, worn down by shame and a bottle of pills. Ethan's grip tightened on the card. This wasn't just money, it was a piece of the man who'd ruined them. Part of him wanted to run to the nearest mall, rack up a bill Crow wouldn't even notice, and call it payback. Another part, quieter but stubborn, whispered something else. What if this was more than a lucky break? What if it was a chance to dig up the truth, to find out who'd really framed his mom and why? Revenge sounded good, but justice, that could change everything. He wiped the rain from his face and made up his mind. He wouldn't spend it all, not yet. He'd use just enough to survive, to get clean and sharp, and then he'd track down James Crow. The man had answers, whether he knew it or not. Ethan didn't have a plan, not really, but he had something better, a fire in his gut and a card that could open doors. As he slipped into the shadows of an alley, the rain kept falling, but for the first time in years, he felt like he was the one holding the storm. The neon glow of a 24-hour diner buzzed in the misty Seattle night as Ethan pushed through the door, the black credit card burning a hole in his pocket. His damp hoodie dripped onto the checkered floor, earning a scowl from the waitress behind the counter. He didn't care. For the first time in months, he wasn't begging for scraps, he was a customer. He slid into a cracked vinyl booth, ordered a cheeseburger and fries, and pulled out the card. The name James M. Crow stared back at him, a taunt and a promise rolled into one. When the food came, he ate slowly, savoring every bite, but his mind was already racing ahead. He needed a plan. First things first, he couldn't walk into Crow's world looking like a street rat. After paying with the card, approved with a casual beep that made his heart skip, he hit a thrift store down the block. $10 got him a clean jacket, a pair of jeans that actually fit, and sneakers without holes. He scrubbed his face in a gas station bathroom, staring at the stranger in the mirror. He almost looked normal, like a kid with a future. But normal wasn't the goal, answers were. And to get them, he'd have to face the lion in his den. Crow Industries' headquarters loomed in the financial district, a glass and steel monolith piercing the gray sky. Ethan had seen it on TV, its sleek lines a symbol of untouchable power. Now, standing across the street with rain streaking his new jacket, it felt like a fortress. Security guards patrolled the entrance, their eyes scanning the crowd. Suits hustled in and out, briefcases swinging. Ethan was out of his depth, but he'd survived worse odds. He'd watched dealers and hustlers on the streets. Confidence was half the game. He straightened up, tucked the card in his hand, and crossed the road. The lobby was a cathedral of wealth, marble floors, chandeliers, a reception desk that screamed exclusivity. The woman behind it, blonde, polished, mid-30s, glanced up as Ethan approached, her smile tightening into a thin line. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone dripping with doubt. Ethan swallowed, his pulse hammering. "I need to see James Crow. It's about this." He slid the card across the desk, keeping his voice steady. Her eyes flicked to it, then back to him, narrowing. "Where did you get that?" "Found it," he said, meeting her gaze. "He dropped it last night. I'm returning it." She didn't buy it. He could see it in the way her hand hovered over the phone, ready to call security. Then he remembered something, a snatch of Crow's phone call he'd overheard in the rain. "Tell him it's about the Pinnacle deal. Code 7-3-9-1. It was a shot in the dark, a random detail he'd caught, but her fingers froze. She tapped an intercom instead. "Sir, there's a visitor. Claims he has your card. Mention Pinnacle, 7-3-9-1. A beat of silence, then a gruff voice crackled through. "Send him up." The receptionist's jaw tightened, but she waved him toward the elevators. Ethan's stomach flipped as he stepped inside, the doors closing with a soft ding. The ride to the 50th floor felt endless, the mirrored walls reflecting a kid who didn't belong. When the doors opened, he stepped into a world of polished wood and floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sprawling below like a toy set. James Crow stood by a massive desk, arms crossed, his sharp gray suit matching the steel in his eyes. "You've got guts," Crow said, his voice low and clipped. "Or you're just stupid. Which is it?" Ethan held out the card, forcing his hand not to shake. "Found this last night. Figured you'd want it back." Crow snatched it, glancing at it before tossing it onto the desk. "You could have spent a fortune. Why didn't you?" Ethan took a breath, the words he'd rehearsed spilling out. "I don't want your money. I want the truth. About my mom, Sarah Carter. She worked for you. Someone framed her, and it killed her. I need to know who." Crow's face didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, maybe, or annoyance. "Carter? Doesn't ring a bell. You've got the wrong guy." Ethan stepped closer, voice rising. 5 years ago. Embezzlement charge. She was innocent, and your company let her rot. I'm not leaving until you tell me what happened." Crow's jaw tightened, and he leaned forward, his presence filling the room. "You think you can waltz in here and demand answers? You're lucky I don't have you arrested." Ethan didn't flinch. "Go ahead. I'll tell everyone, the news, anyone who'll listen. I've got nothing to lose." For a long moment, they stared each other down, the air thick with tension. Then Crow sighed, rubbing his temple. "Fine. I'll look into it. Give me a day. But if this is a scam, kid, you'll regret it." Ethan nodded, adrenaline buzzing in his veins. He'd done it, cracked the door open. But as he turned to leave, Crow's phone buzzed. A woman's voice came through the speaker. "James, we've got a problem. Someone's asking questions about the old Carter file." Ethan froze. Crow's eyes locked onto his, cold and calculating. The game had just begun. Ethan stepped out of the Crow Industries tower into the damp Seattle dusk, his mind spinning like a top. The meeting with James Crow had left him rattled but electrified. He'd planted a seed, and now he had 24 hours to see if it would grow into answers or choke him instead. The city buzzed around him, horns blaring and lights flickering, but he barely noticed. His thoughts kept circling back to Crow's face, that flicker of something guilt? Recognition. When he'd mentioned his mom, Sarah Carter. The man knew more than he was letting on. Ethan just had to figure out how to pry it loose. He ducked into an alley, pulling his new jacket tighter against the chill. The card was gone, handed back to Crow, but he'd kept something else, copies of old papers his mom had hidden in a shoebox before she died. Pay stubs, emails, a scribbled note about discrepancies in Crow Industries books. They weren't proof, not yet, but they were a start. He needed a safe place to think, so he headed to the one spot he still trusted, a rundown library a few blocks away, where the librarians didn't care if you slept in the stacks as long as you were quiet. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed as Ethan spread the papers on a table in the back. His mom's handwriting stared up at him, shaky but determined. They're hiding it. Someone high up. Check the transfers, offshore accounts. He'd read it 100 times, but now, with Crow's reaction fresh in his mind, it felt like a map. He booted up one of the library's ancient computers, the dial-up screech grating his nerves, and started digging. Crow Industries had a shiny public face, tech breakthroughs, charity galas, but Ethan knew the streets taught you to look for the dirt underneath. He searched X, news archives, anything he could find. An hour later, he hit something, a buried article from 5 years back about an internal audit at Crow Industries, hushed up fast. Sarah Carter's name wasn't mentioned, but the timing lined up. Then his phone buzzed, a cheap burner he'd picked up with Crow's card before handing it over. A text from an unknown number. Meet me. 9 p.m. Pier 57. Bring the papers. Ethan's gut twisted. He hadn't told anyone about the documents, not even Crow. Who was this? A trap? A lead? He couldn't risk ignoring it, not when he was this close. He stuffed the papers into his backpack and headed out, the rain picking up again as he trudged toward the waterfront. Pier 57 was a tourist trap by day, all Ferris wheel lights and overpriced crab shacks. But at night it turned eerie, the wind whistling through the pilings. Ethan arrived early, scoping the shadows. At 9 sharp, a figure emerged, a woman, late 30s, sharp suit, blonde hair pulled tight. She moved like she owned the place, her heels clicking against the wetboards. "You're the kid with the card," she said, voice smooth but edged. "I'm Elizabeth Vale. I work for James." Ethan tensed, hands curling into fists. "How'd you know about me?" She smirked. "I know everything that happens in that building. You stirred up a hornet's nest, kid. Sarah Carter's a name we don't like hearing." Ethan's heart thudded. "So you knew her? What happened?" Vale stepped closer, her eyes glinting. She stuck her nose where it didn't belong. "Found some irregularities. We handled it." Ethan's breath caught. "You framed her." Vale shrugged, casual as if discussing the weather. "Someone had to take the fall. She was convenient." Rage flared in Ethan's chest, hot and sharp, but he held it back. "Who's we?" he demanded. Vale's smile faded. "That's not your business. Walk away, kid. You got your food, your clothes. Be smart." She turned to leave, but Ethan grabbed her arm. "I'm not done. Tell Crow I want names, or I go public." Vale yanked free, her composure cracking. "You have no idea what you're messing with. Keep pushing, and you'll end up like her." She vanished into the fog, leaving Ethan shaking with adrenaline and dread. He'd gotten a confession, sort of, but it wasn't enough. Vale was a shark, and she'd just shown her teeth. Back at the library, he scribbled everything down, his hand trembling. He needed more proof, something solid. Then he remembered the article, the audit. If he could tie Vale to it, he might have a shot. He dug deeper online, cross-referencing names, dates, anything. At 2 a.m., he found it, a leaked memo from the audit, buried on a whistleblower forum. Elizabeth Vale's signature was on it, approving a transfer the day before his mom was fired. Ethan leaned back, pulse racing. He had a name, a link. Vale wasn't just Crow's lackey, she was the puppet master. But why? And how much did Crow know? As he packed up, a shadow moved outside the library window, too quick to be random. Someone was watching. Ethan bolted, clutching his backpack, the weight of his mom's papers heavier than ever. He'd cracked the past open, but now the present was closing in. Ethan's boots splashed through puddles as he darted down a narrow Seattle alley, the city's damp breath clinging to his skin. The shadow outside the library had spooked him, and now every rustle of trash or flicker of light felt like a threat. His backpack thumped against his spine, the weight of his mom's papers, and that damning memo anchoring him to his mission. Elizabeth Vale's words echoed in his head. "Keep pushing, and you'll end up like her." He wasn't backing down, not now, not when he had her signature tying her to the frame-up. But he needed help, someone to amplify what he'd found. He thought of Riley, a scrappy ex-user he'd met months back while scavenging near the docks. Riley was a self-styled truth seeker, always posting grainy photos and wild theories about corporate cover-ups. Ethan had his number scribbled on a crumpled receipt. Street kids traded contacts like currency. He ducked into a 24-hour laundromat, the hum of dryers masking his voice as he dialed. "Riley, it's Ethan. I've got something big. Crow Industries, corruption, A name. Can you spread it? Riley's voice crackled through. Eager. Send me what you've got, man. I'll blast it everywhere. Ethan snapped pics of the memo and his notes, hitting send. Just don't use my name yet, he added. Riley laughed. No worries, ghost boy. This is gonna blow up. For a moment, Ethan felt a flicker of hope. But hope was a fragile thing on the streets, and it shattered fast. The next morning, he woke in an abandoned warehouse he'd claimed as a squat, his phone buzzing with alerts. Riley had posted all right, hundreds of retweets, comments exploding on X. The memo was viral, Vale's name trending. But then Ethan saw it, a blurry photo of him leaving Crow's tower, captioned, "The kid who started it all." Riley had sold him out. His stomach dropped. He was exposed, a target. Hours later, sirens wailed outside. Ethan peeked through a broken window, cops, flashlights cutting through the gloom. "Ethan Carter, come out with your hands up," a voice boomed. Panic surged. He grabbed his backpack and bolted out a side exit. But they were ready. 2 officers tackled him in the mud, cuffs snapping tight. At the station, they grilled him. "Where'd you get Crow's card? Why'd you break into his system?" Ethan's head spun. "I didn't break in, I found it." "Check the memo, it's Vale, she framed my mom." The detective smirked. "Yeah, we've got a complaint. Theft. Crow's pressing charges." The cell door clanged shut, leaving Ethan alone with his racing thoughts. Theft? Crow had flipped the script, painting him as the criminal. But why? To bury the truth? Or was Vale pulling strings? Hours crawled by until a guard yanked him out. "Someone's here for you." Ethan expected a public defender, but it was James Crow himself, standing in the precinct lobby, his gray suit crisp against the grimy tiles. "You're a pain in my ass, kid," Crow said, voice low. "But I'm dropping the charges. Let's talk." They sat in a dingy interview room, the air thick with tension. Ethan glared. "You set me up." Crow shook his head. "Not me. Elizabeth. She called the cops, said you stole the card. I didn't know until it was done." Ethan's fists clenched. "Bullshit. You're protecting her." Crow leaned forward, eyes hard. "I dug into the Carter file after you left. Found the audit, the transfers. Vale signed off on everything. She's been skimming for years, millions, offshore. Your mom caught it, and Vale pinned it on her to cover her tracks." Ethan's breath hitched. There it was, the truth, raw and ugly. "So why'd you let me rot here?" Crow sighed, looking older, tired. "I didn't. I've fired Vale, cut her access. But she's not done. She's got dirt on me, deals I shouldn't have made. She's threatening to burn it all down unless I shut you up." Ethan leaned in, voice steady. "Then help me. Take her down. For my mom." Crow hesitated, the weight of years in his silence. "I can get you out, give you proof. But you'll have to trust me." Before Ethan could answer, the door burst open. A woman stormed in, Vale, her cool mask gone, replaced by fury. "You idiot, James. You think you can toss me aside?" She waved a phone, a recording playing, Crow's voice, admitting to shady deals. "One call, and you're finished. Both of you." Ethan's heart pounded. Crow stood, face darkening. "Try it, Elizabeth. I've got backups, every transaction you hit. You're the one who's done." Vale froze, her bluff called. She bolted, heels echoing down the hall. Ethan turned to Crow. "You're serious? You'll fight her?" Crow nodded, grim. "Yeah, but she's got friends. We're not safe yet." The guard shouted. Vale was gone, a car screeching outside. Ethan's victory tasted bitter. He had an ally, but the war was just starting. Ethan stood in the precinct lobby, the cold metal of the chair biting into his legs as James Crow paced nearby, phone pressed to his ear. Elizabeth Vale's escape had left a storm brewing. Her threats hung like thunderclouds over them both. Crow's voice was sharp, barking orders to lawyers and assistants. "Lock the accounts. Pull the backups. Now." Ethan's mind raced. Vale had proof of Crow's dirty deals, but Crow had her corruption on a leash. It was a standoff, and Ethan was caught in the crossfire, his mom's legacy the prize. He clutched his backpack, the papers inside a lifeline to the truth. Crow hung up, turning to him. "She's gone underground, but she's not done. We need to move fast, go public before she does." Ethan frowned. "You're risking everything. Why help me now?" Crow's jaw tightened, a crack in his armor showing. "Your mom wasn't the first Vale buried. I let it happen, too busy counting profits to care. I'm tired of running from that." Ethan studied him, the Tycoon's polished edges fraying. For once, Crow wasn't lying. "Then let's finish it," Ethan said. "For her." They hatched a plan in the precinct's dim light. Crow had evidence, emails, ledgers, Vale's signatures on fake transfers that drained millions from the company, pinning it on scapegoats like Sarah Carter. Ethan had his mom's notes in the memo, tying Vale to the frame-up. Crow called a press conference, leveraging his name to draw every news outlet in Seattle. Ethan would stay in the shadows, feeding Riley. Despite the betrayal, a cleaned-up version of the story for X. No pics of me this time, Ethan warned over the phone. Riley chuckled, chastened. Got it, man. I owe you. The next morning, Crow stood on the steps of his tower, cameras flashing as rain streaked the glass behind him. His voice boomed over the crowd. For years, I trusted Elizabeth Vale to run my company. She betrayed that trust, stole millions, ruined lives, and hid it with lies. I'm done protecting her. Or myself. He laid it bare. Vale's scheme, his own negligence, the truth about Sarah Carter. Reporters gasped. X lit up with Riley's posts. Ethan watched from a diner across the street, TV blaring the feed. His chest tightened as Crow held up a photo, his mom's employee ID, her smile frozen in time. She deserved better, Crow said. I'm making it right. Vale didn't go quietly. Hours later, she leaked her recording online, Crow's voice confessing to shady deals. It hit like a bomb, stocks tanking, headlines screaming. But Crow was ready. His team released the backups, every forged document, every offshore account, all pointing to Vale. The FBI swooped in, tracing her phone. They found her at a private airstrip, boarding a jet with a suitcase of cash. Handcuffs clicked as agents dragged her off, her furious shouts drowned by helicopter blades. Ethan saw it live on his phone, a knot in his throat unraveling. She'd lost. Crow's lawyers got Ethan out of the theft mess, proving the card was returned. At the station, Crow handed him a folder, compensation from the company, enough for a fresh start. College, a place, whatever you want, Crow said. Ethan took it, but his eyes were hard. This doesn't fix what happened. Crow nodded, weary. I know, but it's a start. I'm stepping down cleaning house. You showed me what matters. Ethan didn't reply, just walked away, the folder heavy in his hands. Days later, he sat in a small apartment he'd rented near the Sound, the first real home he'd had in years. The TV murmured, Vale's trial was set, her empire crumbling. Crow was testifying, his career toast but his conscience clear. Ethan opened his mom's shoebox, pulling out her notes. He added a new page, we got her, Mom. It's over. A knock interrupted him, Riley, holding a pizza, sheepish. Peace offering? Ethan smirked, letting him in. They ate in silence, the city humming outside. Weeks turned to months. Ethan enrolled in community college, studying law, fueled by a fire to fight for others like his mom. Crow faded from the spotlight, but he sent letters, updates on the company's overhaul, quiet apologies. One day, Ethan got a call from a lawyer. Vale's conviction had stuck, 20 years. The lawyer added, Crow's funding a scholarship in your mom's name. Thought you'd want to know. Ethan hung up, staring at the water beyond his window. Justice wasn't loud or flashy. It was this, a quiet victory, a life reclaimed. That night, he walked to Pier 57, the Ferris wheel glowing against the dark. He tossed a pebble into the waves, whispering for you, Mom. The wind carried it away, and for the first time in years, Ethan felt light. Vale was behind bars, Crow was rebuilding, and he was free, with a purpose sharper than any blade. The city glittered, no longer a cage but a canvas, and Ethan stepped into it, ready for whatever came next.